Welcome to Extreme Reloading. In this episode, we're going to circle back to the 9mm Luger. You know, we started off early in this season talking about 9mm Luger and 5.56. Well, today, circling back to the 9mm with primers, powder, and bullets. Okay, let's go ahead and walk through the reloading process for the 9mm Luger. What I have here, these are some of the cases we prepared earlier. These all happen to be CCI Blazer cases. So I did my case sorting. These are all CCI Blazer. And as you might be able to see here, I have 10 of those cases that we're using in this series of Extreme Reloading. What we're doing today is we are priming, and I have chosen to use the Federal small pistol. They got this tag right over the top. You can't really see the packaging very well, but this is Federal small pistol match primers. Now, I'm using match primers. It is not an absolute necessity, not a bare essential, but and I do have a box of, or several boxes of the Federal 100. It's your standard small pistol primer. It will allow you to easily craft safe and reliable ammo. I've chosen the gold medal match primers for this application because the bullet that's going to end up going into this case is a Sig Sauer Sierra V-Crown bullet. So it's a self-defense, a defensive bullet, and because of that purpose, I'm going to go with a little bit higher quality primer. So I've got this set. It should work out really well, but I always need to check the setting on the first case, and if necessary, we will have to make some adjustments. What I've done here is I have this click adjustable die lock ring, and it is good for a couple clicks one way or the other, which is just great. I use this exact same setup for my 5.56, so small rifle priming, 5.56 and 223, as well as for obviously my small pistol priming. One way to tell if you're kind of in the ballpark is to depress this here and to see how far above this lip, the actual primer is going to sit. Now that looks like it's going to do a pretty good job, maybe a little bit deep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this a little bit. 1, 2, 3 clicks. Take a look at that again. That looks a little bit better. It may not be deep enough now, but it's better to err on that side because we can always set the primer deeper. But once we set it too deep, we can't reverse that. Okay? So, just like I have done with the small rifle primers, I'm going to dispense 10 of these. And I always like to try to work in numbers that will, use my primers kind of evenly. Not necessary, of course, but that's how I like to do it. Now, normally I don't give it the little shake here in the air. I'll give it that little shake right over here. And what we need to do is we want to have this primer tray where the primers are all set with anvils up. And that's what they are. That's what these little concentric rings are for. Okay, before I touch these primers with my hands, I'm going to go inside and wash them thoroughly. I like to use some dish detergent, gets all of the grease and oils off my hands. Then I'm going to be right back to prime these things. Okay, I am back. And I am going to take one of these cases, one of these primers. This is the only time I handle these primers Try to do it as delicately as possible. Now you see how that primer is sitting? It's not really sitting nice and flat. I don't want to put this in here now. Here's a little trick. Just bump that handle. All I'm doing is I'm lifting the handle a little bit from its bottommost position on this press and let it drop, just a little bump, and it'll always drop that in very, very nicely. Now I could fiddle with it, touch it, but I try to touch these as little as possible. Now, you can do what you want. I'm just telling you what I have done, and I have still never had a misfire at all, and I have been loading since the 1980s. Let's go ahead and drop. Now I'm lifting the handle again, lifting the handle really nicely, and all I got to do is put it, lift it enough so that the primer drops below this base. Going to put the case in there. Now don't hold on to this. Don't have your hand above this or anything like that, because if something goes wrong and this detonates, you don't want to be putting your hand out here. So now we're going to feel this. And now the handle is lowered to its lowest position. We're going to lift it up a little bit. Notice how that moved a little bit? That tells me that it has released. And we're going to take a look at this thing. Let's take a look. That is a pretty nice recess. Pretty nice, but I think I'd like it a little bit lower. I'm going to set that over there. I'm working on this one, keeping it distinct from those others. So I'm going to drop this just a little bit. One click. There. Literally one click on this. Bring it back up. Drop it below. There, I felt it. Push it a little bit more in. Seat it a little bit deeper. Yeah, I like that. See, that's just that little bit more of a recess. Just a little bit more of a recess. Very palpable, easy to feel that it's recessed, and that is good. Now, I'm going to place this on this side of my reloading block, and this side has been primed. This side I still need to work on. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll be right back. All right, I ended up giving this one more click down after watching the second one and feeling that wasn't as deep as I really wanted it, so I did go back and reseat case number one. This is my last case, and actually when I'm doing this, I like to have the primer tray on the right side and my cases on the left. It just makes handling this just that little bit easier. When I'm on camera, nothing's too easy because I got to work around the camera, but there we go. That is the last primer. Again, going to give it the little bump, and it drops in. I didn't have to touch it again. Same deal. Very nice. I really like that seating now. And you're going to see that these, CCI blazers are going to be quite consistent when you're doing a batch of those things, Winchesters, and you may need to make, slight adjustments. So I made it easy on myself with this click lock ring. You don't have to use this. You could easily unscrew the set screw a little bit, whatever, and adjust it that way. I found this just a little bit handy, a little bit more handy to make these fairly frequent changes to the exact seating, and I'm fairly particular about that. Well, the next step, we're going to get at that, is adding a powder charge to these. Add the powder charge to these things. I will be using Unique powder, 5.0 grains of Unique. That is a good charge for my pistols when I'm topping them off with 124 grain Sierra or Sig Sauer V-Crown bullets. We'll get at that here in just a bit. Now, adding a powder charge to a pistol case like these 9mm Luger, notice I have the primers in place. Adding a powder charge is really no different than adding a powder charge in a rifle case. Couple of nuances that I guess would be a little bit different. And obviously I'm using a different powder. This one, as I already mentioned, is Unique. That's the powder of choice for me for this particular round that I'm loading. I'm going to go ahead and add this to the hopper. Again, I'm filling it up sufficiently, much more than I'm going to need for this job, but that is going to help ensure that the trickler and the powder scale works properly. I've got a little bit, it's below detection levels, but still I'm adding that back to the hopper, and I'm going to be starting with an absolutely clean powder pan. Now, one of my pet peeves with loading blocks and the 9mm Luger is the fact that when I'm placing my powder funnel here, I have some problems with that. And oftentimes I'll have powder spill all over the place, and that is the reason why I constructed this reloading block right here. So I simply used a Forstner bit that had the closest size to one of these 9mm heads. A chunk of this happens to be some maple, hardwood maple. You don't need to use hardwood for this if you do end up making one. But let me show you what happens with a standard loading block versus something like this. Okay, so this is a standard RCBS loading block. Good in many, many ways. Nothing really too wrong with it, except this. Let's say that is my 9mm case I'm going to now put powder into. Let's say that I also have a pan full of powder. And this is, and I am throwing 5.0 grains of unique. So let's say I have that. Okay, now I'm going to place my funnel over the top of this. You see what's happening? It is actually making contact with the case block, the loading block, well before it makes contact with this 9mm case. That's a problem. Now you might think, oh, it's okay, you know, this is good, I got it centered over it. You go ahead and dump in your powder charge, and I can see completely through this. And it's going to spill all over the place. So that's not good. I tried lots of different things. I tried dremeling this thing down and all that good stuff, but it's just not a good solution. And I tried some other loading blocks. I actually found one on Etsy that a fellow was making. People said, this is really good, but that didn't last very long. I got it and set it down, and I could spin that thing around like a lazy Susan. It was so uneven, it ended up in the trash the day I got it, actually. So I have this, and I've been using this for years. Now look what happens when I take my powder funnel and place it over a case ready to have the powder charge added to it. Okay, notice that? Now the powder funnel is making contact with the top of the case, the mouth of the case, and I actually have a little bit of room. I have a little bit of wiggle room in here. That's perfect. I am not going to spill a single kernel of this powder. Let's kind of throw that out. Now, everyone doesn't have to go make their own. There may be some out there that work perfectly well. And if you know of one that works really, really well for 9mm Luger, maybe some 380, those sorts of things, go ahead and pop that into the comments, and I might go ahead and pick one of those up and give it a try. Now let's go ahead and actually start the powder charging process. Okay, let's get this thing finished up now. We are going to throw 5.0 grains of powder. Go. Getting the very first charge, it's got to load up these tubes here. Takes a little while for it to dispense that first one compared to the second, third, and fourth, and so on. We're going to work from here, and as we fill these up, they are going to be transferred to the opposite side. That's good, a good way to help you make sure that you are not overcharging or double charging. Now again, remember, these things are somewhat sensitive, and the fact that I'm sitting here talking about this, I know, and I've seen this before, it actually affects us. So I've got an undercharge here, 4.9. It's not what I asked for. So I'm simply going to press this trickle button. There we go. You see it just threw out that little bit more. We're going to let it stabilize, make sure there's not a problem, And indeed, I am now throwing 5.0 grains, exactly. If you don't believe that, remove it, put it back on there. Yeah, 5.0 grains. Now let's go ahead and add this to this case right here. It's not going to spill anything doing this. Give that a little bit of a shake. Make sure everything has come through the funnel. Lift this straight off. And there we go. A nicely charged case. And that's about what we expect. Oh, I'll estimate that's about 1/4 of an inch below the mouth. And that's what we want to see on all of these. Now, one thing interesting about Unique is it is a fluffy powder. Fluffy, in other words, it can take an awful lot of compression before it really is a compressed load. So be aware of that. They can look really, really full, but there's a lot of air trapped between all these different kernels. Perfect job, 5.0 grains. I'm going to go ahead and continue this entire process. Notice I spilled a little bit there. I have 10 cases that have been primed, and I have a powder charge in them. That's 5.0 grains of Unique powder. That works really well for these 124 grain bullets. And in particular, what I'm loading today is the Sig Sauer Sierra 124 grain jacketed hollow point V-crown bullets. Pretty darn good terminal ballistics on these things. And that's what I'm loading today. And so that is really the reason why I have used my match small pistol primers. Very similar to how we seat bullets in rifle cases, with one difference. And that difference is the fact, working around the camera is a little bit difficult, but that difference is the fact that this will end up with a taper crimp on it, where we don't use that for rifle cases. Some people do crimp some rifle cases, but I do not. But we do need to do that for our pistol cases, and a taper crimp is used for semi-automatic pistols. Notice this has a cantilever on it. Let's go ahead and seat this. We have a nice expansion on it. The bullet sets in there all by itself. Raise that in the ram. That is that. And it has a nice taper crimp on it. It's not obvious that it has a taper crimp, but we're going to test this in just a little while with one of my gauges to make sure that it has affected the correct crimp so that this is safe and reliable ammo. I did want to talk a little bit about crimps and cantilevers, and just because you have a cantilever does not mean that you absolutely must crimp into that cantilever. It's okay if it's not exactly on that cantilever. It's not a big problem. Probably better that you crimp into the cantilever, but again, it's not absolutely mandatory. And on rifle cases, you might see, especially with bullets that are solid copper, you'll oftentimes see what might look like cantilevers. Those are not cantilevers. For instance, in the Barnes bullets, the Hornady solid copper or gilding metal bullets, those are relief grooves. Those are grooves made to reduce some pressures and also reduce the copper fouling. All 10 of these now have their bullets seated in them, and they look good. They look real nice. But how can we be sure that I have safe and reliable ammo, reliable at least, before I even go out to the range? Well, a couple ways that we can do that. The first way that I've been using now for some years is to use one of these Lyman handgun gauges. Has a spot for pretty much all the common handgun calibers. There's our 9mm Luger. What we do is we just drop that in, and it should drop straight in. It shouldn't stick at all, and that's what it should look like. We should not have it protruding, and it shouldn't be sunk in either. This is nice and level. Very nice. This is going to function nicely in my pistols, or any pistol, 9mm Luger pistol with a SAMI spec chamber. Now that's going to cost you a little bit of money. I think it's a good investment. What if you don't have this? The other way, kind of the old-fashioned way of doing this, is what we call the barrel plunk test. I know that's extremely technical jargon, but we call that's what it's called, the barrel plunk test. So what I've done is I have taken apart and this is super simple with these modern handguns. This is my barrel from my FNX 9mm pistol. Okay? And what I can do is I can take this same bullet, and I'm going to test all these, and plunk it in. Now you might say, uh-oh, that's a problem. It's really sticking out. Yeah, it's supposed to. So now you've really got to get to know your pistol. And the way that these work, of course, if we look at the slide, right here, we look at this slide, there is a recess cut right in here, and that extractor sitting right inside there has to be able to get a grip on the case itself to extract it when this slides backwards, right? Okay, so that case has to stick out. It cannot be flush, okay? If you don't trust your own reloads, if the first time you've done it, well, simple thing here, let's learn to gauge this. This is some factory ammo, very good personal defense stuff. This is Federal HST 147 grain. Take one of these cases, factory load, right? And if nothing else, factory loads are safe and reliable ammo almost all the time. Drop that in. That's what it should be looking like, right? Is that the same as ours? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Very nice. So I'm going to test all the rest of these, good thing to do. Test all that ammo. Make sure it's good, safe, reliable ammo. And then, of course, you package it up, box it up, and you're ready to head out to the range. Throughout this season of Extreme Reloading, we've talked a lot about the 5.56 and the 9mm Luger. If you missed any of the episodes starting with the absolute essentials of reloading through case preparation and so on and so forth, just take a look at the playlist link in the description below. Today we've more or less finished up that 9mm. One of the things that we still want to do, I didn't talk about yet, is, once we box up our ammo, I have reused this CCI Blazer brass box for 9mm. What I like to do is put a good sticker on the back and write in, normally I use pencil, write in the date at which or on which you completed this loading. That's the bare minimum to put on this label. Then oftentimes I'll also put a little note about these rounds. In this run I wrote V crown. Tells me that this is the V crown. And since the 124 grain is the only V crown that I'm loading now, it makes good sense to me what's really inside this box. The reason why I really recommend this is, let's say you go out to the range, something goes really well. These rounds shot very, very well for you. Or, unfortunately, maybe something didn't go really, really well. Well, going back into your reloading journal, you can look up exactly what you did with this load by that date, right? Because we noted that early on with the reloading journal that we keep. So I can go back even years later and refresh my memory about exactly how this box of ammo, well, there's only 10 in here, but how this set of ammo was reloaded. So season number 9 is coming to an end, but we've got a couple more episodes coming up. So stick around for the next episode of Extreme Reloading. Thanks for watching.